Ladies and gentlemen, I really hope that I'm wrong today, man. I really hope that one of you can find a perspective on Invisible Woman from this video that I just haven't been able to find so far. Because Otrix, the legendary data miner man, has sent me over all the information on Invisible Woman's abilities. And she was looking like fairly interesting from the early data mine abilities, but now that we've got the values, man, there's just a lot of stuff that has really let me down, and I'll show you guys some of the stuff here, man, because pretty much all of the values really do disappoint when it does come to Invisible Woman. Now, let's talk about the core of her abilities. So we've got while dodging backward, Invisible Woman is not struck by attacks, so I think she's got an inbuilt dexterity there, which isn't very useful or adds much to the character for the majority of players, unless it is an extended version like Nightcrawler's. She also has a 20% chance that a block is a perfect block as well, and at her base she has slightly higher than average block proficiency, just over 70%. So, you know, a couple of good things there in regards to the block. However, as a penalty for this, physical resistance is decreased by 700. Also, for each debuff on the opponent, Invisible Woman's attacks deal an additional 4% of the damage dealt as a burst of physical damage. So, you know, it's not really like ramping up much there, man. 4% of the damage dealt as a burst of physical damage. You're going to need a lot of debuffs to get a fair bit from that, and there is one way you can gain a lot of debuffs, but it is a little bit impractical. And she's also going to have a pre-fight ability, so this one, it seems like you can use it as much as you want. It's got a bit of a con associated with it, so it's called the best defense here. So if Force Field is active, Invisible Woman's hits have an additional 20% of her base attack rating, but also at the expense of draining the Force Field by 5%. So, especially with the way that the Special 2 works and giving you a Fury based on the amount of force field you have, this just doesn't really seem like something that you'd probably want to activate, but I might be incorrect on that. Again, it's a very small attack rating bonus for a bit of a penalty there, which also interferes with a few other mechanics. So yeah, that one, the pre-fight ability, it just doesn't seem like really good there. But then we also have her force field. So Invisible Woman starts the fight with a force field, and the force field's maximum strength is equal to about 10% of her health and scales with boost and buffs. Now, what this force field does is whenever Invisible Woman would take damage other from the Special 3 attack, the force field takes up to 90% of the damage instead. So there's a lot of mitigation on kind of the parries and blocks, especially the parries as well. But it's not really like that big, and especially if you take like a full block combo, it's probably going to pop because it's only 10% of her max health there. So, you know, it's not the biggest force field in the world. And also physical and energy resistances are increased by 370 on a fully maxed out 5-star, and that is very low. So it just doesn't seem that great. And then when it comes to the force field expiring, so when it runs out, it's going to go into cooldown for 20 seconds, after which it's going to reform at 100% strength. If force field doesn't reform for any reason, it goes into cooldown again for 10 seconds, so that reason is probably associated with stuff like ability accuracy reduction. So yeah, if you lose the force field, it takes 20 seconds to passively reform there, so that's a fair amount of time without it, in all fairness there. So you know, it's pretty weak, doesn't form very quickly after it's shattered, can't absorb Special 3s or any damage there. So, you know, I much prefer like Iceman's ice armor to this mechanic, just looking at how the force field functions. But then we also have invisibility, and this is maybe where like a slight ray of hope potentially comes into the character, along with the vulnerability. So Invisible Woman turns invisible whenever she dodges an attack or the force field is depleted. So invisibility lasts for 2 seconds, but starts paused if Invisible Woman is not bleeding. So when you're fighting her, as long as you've got her bleeding with like you know, a lot of skilled champions bleeds, invisibility will only last for 2 seconds. However, it's going to be paused indefinitely until a certain action is taken if she's not bleeding. So while invisible, incoming attacks have a 100% chance to miss as long as Invisible Woman is not blocking or dodging, and critical rating is increased by 3,900. So there's a fair bit of additional crit rating there. However, invisibility will be unpaused and start the 2-second expiry when Invisible Woman blocks an attack, an opponent misses, or an opponent hits Invisible Woman. So if you can intercept really, really well, you can stay invisible by the look of it and gain kind of that additional crit rating permanently, and also start stacking up vulnerability as well. But also when invisibility expires, it has a 10-second cooldown as well, which is substantially longer than champions like Ghost when it comes to their phasing. But again, there is this potential way that you can get the crit rating benefit by permanently intercepting to the best of my knowledge and understanding here. Then we also have this additional mechanic called vulnerability. So whenever Invisible Woman would turn invisible, she places a vulnerability debuff on the opponent to a maximum of 50 vulnerabilities. So this needs to be whenever she goes invisible, it's going to place one of those on the opponent, and again, every single debuff is 4% additional damage as a burst of physical. So when attacking a vulnerable opponent, it increases her crit damage rating as well and decreases their block proficiency by 10%, and all vulnerability debuffs are purified when invisibility expires, and whenever a vulnerability debuff is purified, invisibility expires immediately. So if you're fighting somebody like Agent Venom, Crossbones, anybody that can shrug off, that's going to get rid of all the vulnerability debuffs there. But if you can stay invisible and keep on stacking these up to a maximum of 50, you're going to have the 200% increased burst of physical damage there, along with the 3,900 crit rating, and also a fair bit of additional crit damage rating as well. So there may be a way, if you're like intercepting and playing really, really well in a long matchup to ramp up, where you could get some semi-decent damage with Invisible Woman. This actually might turn out to be quite good, and really it is, at this point, the only hope for the champion to have some fairly reasonable damage out. But again, if you taken it, you know, if the opponent misses, if you block, then you're going to get rid of invisibility there. So it is very much relying on your intercepting, and I think there are champions that are going to have a lot more damage output without all the hassle of Invisible Woman. And at her base, man, there's just not really like much utility that we've covered so far, or really anything, because, you know, if you are going for this tactic, and I'm assuming, you know, you're going to be able to stack these vulnerabilities and ramp them up, then yeah, you're just gonna have to intercept all the time. So there's a lot that you are not going to be able to take advantage of, like the really, really good block proficiency, and also the exhaustion as well. So the exhaustion, terribly disappointing when it comes to the value here. So if the force field is active, you've got a 65% chance to exhaust the opponent, decreasing their critical damage rating for 5 seconds, and the opponent's power gain effects are also reduced by 25% for each exhaustion debuff on them. So that's when attacked. So you've got to be blocking hits, you've got to be parrying hits, and it's not a guaranteed chance. It's only a 65% chance there. So it seems like it's going to be somewhat useful maybe for the Mordo matchup, but you know, slight reduction on power gain there when you're trying to bait out the heavy attacks, but overall, like, it's nowhere near as good as Luke Cage, man. I don't think you're going to get any sort of reliable power reversal there. So when it comes to power reversal, like, Luke Cage and Void seem like substantially better options still. And then we've got the special attacks as well. So we've got the special one. On the last hit, the force field, if the force field is active, add a flat 25% to its current strength. And on the last hit as well, if force field is on cooldown, you've got a 50% chance for it to be restored at 50% strength. So again, it's all RNG, there's no guarantee here, and as we've talked about earlier, the force field just doesn't really seem that strong or like it's going to be that effective. So, you know, I may be incorrect on that one, man, but it does seem a little bit underwhelming at first glance there. And then we got the special attacks too. So the first hit of this attack grants a Fury for 9 seconds, increasing attack rating by 100% of base attack, scaling with the current force field strength, and then the force field is drained. So it looks like the Fury from this one is based on the strength of the force field, to the best of my understanding. So if that's not at max, that's going to be less than 100% additional attack. And if you've got the pre-fight ability active, you will just be like draining your force field all the time. So yeah, I just don't really see that being that great, but it's going to make her hit a little bit harder. I guess this is probably going to be the go-to special attack just to get a bit of a Fury bonus there. But again, it's only 9 seconds seconds Fury bonus. And if we have a look at Namor and the early abilities for him, he's got a 300% Fury on his special 3 that lasts for 20 seconds, and he has so many crazy ways to like gain power as well, especially with Imperious Rex and all sorts of additional stuff, so the damage output just seems remarkably dry on this lass. Then we've also got, if this attack is blocked, Invisible Woman has a 50% chance to turn invisible. So yeah, I don't see that being like super useful there. You probably do want to land this one for the damage, I would assume, but that's probably, you know, something that's slightly more annoying on defense there. And then finally we've got the special attack 3, so if the force field is active, you're going to add a flat 100% to the force field's current strength. If the force field is on cooldown, it instead is restored at 100% strength and pause invisibility on Invisible Woman, and it cannot unpause for 6 seconds. So yeah, that might be quite good for, you know, a time where you want to avoid a special attack or something like that. But yeah, I don't know. There's not really much on the base of this lass, and she seems like a little bit annoying, a little bit impractical to play. I really hope there's something big that I'm missing in terms of the way that you play this character again. I don't want Invisible Woman to suck. I want it to be really, really good, but I'm just not really seeing it, man. I'm not really seeing it. And then we have the signature ability, which is mainly a bit more defensive than offensive, but it gives her 2 seconds invisibility at the start of the fight, and also a 60% chance to turn invisible whenever she is knocked down, and whether the opponent misses, the force field gains back 10% of its starting value. But by looking at it in the optimal way of playing Invisible Woman, kind of stacking up all those debuffs, it just doesn't really seem like this is going to be that great offensively. So yeah, it just doesn't really seem like it's going to save the champion there, but going to make her a little bit more annoying on defense. And then we've also got kind of the base attribute and synergies. So I think we've got the synergies up next. So the one with what is it, the other members of the Fantastic Four so far, increases block proficiency and perfect block chance, and also if all other champions in the synergy are presented, well-timed blocks inflict a 10% weakness debuff on the opponent for 6 seconds. So yeah, I mean, she's got very, very high block proficiency, man, and that's really all I can say about Invisible Woman so far. So she's got that, and 10% weakness as well. So yeah, that seems interesting. And then we've got Till Death, which I assume is with Mr. Fantastic. When the opponent activates a special attack, if the force field is active, it gains 10% strength for each bar of power spent. So you know, that one might be somewhat useful, man, for kind of recharging the force field if you've got the pre-fight ability active. And then we have Unfazed. When the opponent misses, generate 10% of a bar of power, and this is with Hood, Darkhawk, and Ebony Maw. Yeah, I just don't think that's going to be too useful for really any champion there. That's a very, very small amount of power. I don't know, it might be alright, man. Hopefully Ebony Maw gets buffed and that's a little bit more effective, but that doesn't look like it's going to save Invisible Woman or Ebony Maw. And then we've got a very small one with a lot of different champions here. So this one increases passive fury, prowess regeneration, indestructible, and limbo effects by 10 seconds in terms of their duration. So prowess is Emma Frost, regeneration I assume is from like a Mega Red Special 3 there, regeneration and fury from Sabretooth maybe it's kind of mainly the regeneration there. Limbo is going to be for magic, indestructible I assume is going to be for Sentry there. So yeah, that one seems like a very small bonus there, nothing super game changing, but all right. And then finally you've got 5% health with Namor, and it's pretty funny, man, because the Namor synergy is romance with the Invisible Woman, but the Invisible Woman synergy is just friends with Namor. Boys, can we have an effing chat for Namor right now? But it really seems like you know, Invisible Woman, in terms of her gameplay and how good the champion is going to be on offense, it seems like she's going to be taking a lot of Fs, boys. But yeah, I don't know, man. Again, I really, really do hope there is something that I'm missing about Invisible Woman in terms of her abilities. Like, she's got some Some pretty good base stats in terms of crit rating, crit damage rating, block proficiency again. It's slightly above average as well at 70%. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just I'm a little bit cynical. I'm a little bit cynical so far as to how good Invisible Woman's going to be, because the champions this year have been very hit and miss, and we've had some massive miss champions in terms of Diablo and Ebony Maw. And my guess right now in prediction, just looking at these abilities to the best of my knowledge, would be that Invisible Woman is going to be a incredibly disappointing champion unless there is something really big that I'm missing or I'm not understanding a mechanic properly. But let me know if you watched this video this far and figured out something about Invisible Woman or a way that you could play her potentially that I might have glossed over or missed today. Again, I've kind of read through these abilities a few times now, just trying to find something, some sort of redeeming factor or quality. But yeah, we're gonna have to see, man. We're certainly gonna have to see, because you never know how good a champion is until they're in the game. But aside from that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy today's Invisible Woman breakdown, please do smash that like button. That'd be greatly appreciated. Aside from that, take care, and I hope that you have an absolutely fantastic day.